Without such regard, there can be no motivation to reduce suffering and therefore no respite. Instead, the production of individual suffering can and has young people, especially young people with a conscience, because they've been told since they were little that there's nothing to them but corruption and power. It's like, how the hell do you expect them to react? Well, I shouldn't do anything then, Is there anything more fundamental than pain? Love? Really? If you're in pain,
things like this don't just happen, and the fact that I can tell you this.
Stop it. Please stop. Stop. Stop it. Stop crying. Stop crying.
Supreme victory!
What's going on, everyone? How you doing? I hope you're doing well. Today I want to talk about Jordan B. Peterson, Jordan Basketball Peterson, Michael Jordan Basketball Peterson. That is his full legal birth name. If you didn't know that, you can look it up. No, don't look it up. Just trust me. Just trust me. That's his real name. So some of you might have noticed, whether you love Jordan Peterson, you hate him, or you're indifferent, you might have come across some clips of him just crying. And, you probably seen like one or two, whatever, and it's like, oh, very passionate or whatever. But you probably didn't notice how often he's been crying. And just recently, within the past year or two or something like that. I've known Jordan Peterson for a while, as long as pretty much anyone has known him that actually follows him, because, right, he wasn't popular until, 2016? I had a conversation with him in 2017. The conversation went well. Everything was nice and respectable. Then you kind of start going, just forward. He's putting out his books. He's killing it. He's doing these tours and everything. Everything seems pretty normal. Just Jordan Peterson seems like a normal person. Now, some people would maybe disagree with that, but you know what I mean. There was no just bawling his eyes out. Then you kind of notice a shift. At a certain point, he just cries for almost anything. Things that you would maybe expect a pregnant hormonal woman to cry at. Things that you would just think a normal person would just be like, why are you crying? You would probably think they're kind of insane, or something is deeply wrong. Something is horribly wrong. Something is going terribly in their life. And it's one of those things that I wanted to do this video to speculate, what's the deal?
How are you doing? How are you doing?
brilliantly and terribly. When you listen to a profound piece of music,
a few moments later,
beautiful transcendence of the music. And that's meaning, that's awful in the most fundamental sense, but you need an antidote to suffering, and it has to be deep. And deep moves you tectonically, and it's not a trivial thing. But that's better than happiness.
What the fuck are you talking about?
So I think it's interesting when he says brilliantly and horribly, about how he's doing, the simple question, and it gets them all extremely emotional. Now, what does that mean exactly? Especially, this is me speculating. He's doing well because he's a superstar in the political sphere. He's making millions of dollars. He's a very rich man and stuff like that. So maybe he's doing very well. But at the same time, he is suffering. But why is he suffering? So we've known things about his past, right? Things that he's had to deal with. His wife having a cancer that seemed like it would have been fatal, but she pulled through, which caused him, if I remember everything correctly, it caused him to get extremely addicted to benzos, which he had to undergo some extreme circumstances or some extreme stuff, right? He had to fly to Russia and be induced in a coma to kick that addiction, which was extremely dangerous, but obviously he's alive. But that's a lot of stuff to go through, right? So some people speculate that it has to do with some of that stuff. Maybe he's still heavily addicted, or maybe there's things behind the scenes that we don't understand. I don't know. It's somewhat plausible that it could be somewhere in that direction, but I personally have something that I think is a little bit more plausible, and it has to do with his autoimmune disorder and his diet.
Well, this is anecdotal evidence from a human being that has dealt with autoimmune issues your whole life.
Yes.
You have done this for how long now?
I've been on a pure carnivore diet for about 2 months and a very, very low carb, greens only, modified carnivore diet for about a year.
What was the motivation for cutting out the greens?
Well, all of the motivation for this has been my experience with my daughter, because she has an unbelievably serious autoimmune disease.
So I'm sure most of you know, if you don't really know, and for the people that don't really know Jordan Peterson, he has some serious autoimmune disorders. He once talked about on the Joe Rogan Experience that he had a sip of, like, I think it was apple cider, and it, like, damn near killed him or something. He said he couldn't sleep for a month or something.
Apple cider? Like, what was it doing?
Sulfites in it.
What was it doing to you?
Oh, it produced an overwhelming sense of impending doom. And I seriously mean overwhelming. Like, there's no way I could have lived like that if that would have lasted for... See, Michaela knew by that point that it would probably only last a month, and I was like...
A month?
Yeah,
from
a month.
Fucking cider?
Oh, I didn't sleep that month. I didn't sleep for 25 days. I didn't sleep at all. I didn't sleep at all for 25 days.
How is that possible?
I'll tell you how it's possible. You lay in bed, frozen in something approximating terror for 8 hours, and then you get up.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. Not
and
good.
This is from fucking cider.
So eating for him it's always been a challenge, and same for his daughter, Michaela. Michaela has also been suffering from autoimmune disorders. If I remember correctly, she even had like so much inflammation in her ankles and whatnot. I think that she had them replaced when she was 19 or something. It's hard to remember everything. I'm kind of going off the top of my head, but it's not like super important to the story. But the whole point is that they've been dealing with autoimmune disorders. And this is when Michaela came up with something called the Lion Diet. Now, I don't know if she came up with it, but coined it as the Lion Diet, which is just eating salt and beef and drinking water. And that is your diet, and that is it.
Quit eating greens. And I thought, oh, really? Jesus, Michaela, I'm eating cucumbers, lettuce, broccoli, and chicken and beef. It's like I have to cut out the goddamn greens? It's like, try it for a month. Okay.
Now, many people were very skeptical about that diet, especially when they talked about like all of my ailments, all the things that were messing me up. It cleared up when I started doing this. Michaela said she felt great, and then all of a sudden Jordan Peterson is talking about, I feel great once Michaela made me do this. Like, just take all this stuff away, just only eat this. And all of a sudden, all the things that he had before, like gum disease or whatever, they all just went away from just stop eating anything else.
Within a week, I was 25% less anxious in the morning. Within 2 weeks, 75%. And I've been better every single day. I'm better now probably than I've ever been in my life. And I haven't been taking antidepressants for a whole year. I've had gum disease since I was 25. That's been serious enough to I've had to have minor surgical interventions, scraping and that sort of thing to keep it at bay. It's gone.
So it obviously caused a lot of people to try and do these things, which is dangerous, right? It's dangerous to do that and go on fad diets, right? I think most people would know that when there's certain diets that prop up, it's like, they're all fads. You know, the whole thing about being on a diet is not supposed to be a fad, quick, easy solution. It's supposed to be changing your eating habits, right? And then it should still be a balance, but you're changing your terrible eating habits, or maybe you're just cutting out some of the calories and stuff because, right, if you're trying to lose weight, for example, you got to be on a caloric deficit. There's no other way around it. Now, say if it's for autoimmune disorders and whatnot, and you have all this crazy inflammation and all this stuff, yeah, you got to experiment. You got to figure things out, what works for you, because a lot of people have food sensitivities and food allergies and whatnot. So yeah, it's a very messy process. But one thing that is very crucial to that stuff is if you find the diet or the lifestyle changes that works for you, you typically also want to supplement things that you're not getting from a lack of whatever it is. Right? So if you're only eating meat, for example, and salt, you're probably missing a ton of nutrients. You're missing a ton of vitamins. So you would want to supplement that stuff. So this is where the thing gets kind of, the gears start turning, where it's like the way that Jordan Peterson's been behaving and the way that he's been acting, why he's crying all the time. Well, if he's only eating beef, like say maybe he's still only eating beef and salt because he truly is suffering.
You've done no blood work, so you don't know what your lipid profile is. Or
no, I'll get that done again when I go back.
Do you take
to
any vitamins?
No, I eat beef and salt and water. That's it, and I never cheat, ever, not even a little bit.
That would make a lot of sense why his hormones are all out of whack and he just is crying like crazy, because if you don't have a proper balanced diet, if you don't have the proper supplementations, if you're only eating one thing, it's gonna screw you up. Balance is good, and then just eat less, right? That's all you should really do. So it looks like, in my opinion, I am no professional, I'm no nutritionalist, it's just, I just have a understanding of your body needs certain things to function, and I think it is highly probable that Jordan is not getting enough of anything, and his body is just completely, his hormones are not being regulated. And so he's all thrown off because he is crying all the time.
They don't get encouragement, and people need so little encouragement. It's just unbelievable. Partly because it's too terrifying a reality to fully believe. I don't even know what would happen to you if you fully believed it.
This article was written about a study that was published to the National Library of Medicine on PubMed.gov. Study: high-protein, low-carb diets may cause large decrease in men's testosterone. So I want to highlight this part where it talks about cortisol and testosterone. Cortisol levels were less impacted by high-protein, low-carbohydrate diets, with only a slight increase in both resting and post-exercise cortisol amounts in the short run. However, as cortisol levels returned to a baseline after around 3 weeks on the diet, researchers posit the condition is likely a part of the adaptation process to such diets and thus may not represent a pathological state. And talking about testosterone, it says, as for testosterone, researchers found that participants who consumed a moderate diet of protein with a low amount of carbohydrates had no long-term changes in their testosterone, but high protein and low carbohydrate diets greatly decreased resting and post-exercise total testosterone, which suggests individuals consuming such diets may need to be cautious about adverse endocrine effects. The average decrease in testosterone levels for those in high protein, low carbohydrate diets was around 37%. Carbs are your friend, ladies and gentlemen. Carbs are your friend. I don't respect people that just try to eliminate all carbs from their diet. I feel like you need some. So let me tell you something. Towards the beginning of 2020, I moved to my grandma's house that needed a lot of work done. I've talked about this before, and it was rat infested and dilapidated. It was just a bad environment, and I got really sick, and just everything got thrown off. My testosterone dropped under a normal level. Like, say your normal, like, say, what would you say, like, the cutoff of normal is like 300 nanograms per deciliter, and mine dropped under that. And it was very hard to deal with that because doctors are just not, like, my endocrinologist and everything was not best equipped. So that's when I went to a clinic, jumped on TRT, got my levels regulated, figure out that I feel like I was also missing some stuff like potassium iodine, things from my thyroid being unhealthy. And now I feel infinitely better. I'm noticing my hair is growing back. Because even when I was on TRT, my hair wasn't consistently growing back. So I'm like, there's some other issues that need to be tackled, right? I say all this because when I was going through those waves of just my hormones being totally unbalanced and crashing and stuff, I was sad a lot. and consciously sad in a way that like I shouldn't be sad. I'm aware that I should not feel this way. I remember I saw a story of a little girl being abused by her stepdad, and the mom didn't believe her. The grandma was kind of gaslighting the girl. The only one that was fighting was the dad, who was, you know, living not he was fighting. So there was a whole GoFundMe thing. It was a whole thing. I remember watching this thing and just bawling my eyes out. In a normal sense, I would be a little sad but more angry, because whenever I see, you know, any stories about children being abused, I become enraged. But in that time, I cried my eyes out, and I'm like, bro, what is happening? I'm completely aware that something is going on here. So I fixed the problem. And I think, and this is just pure speculation, because I don't know Jordan Peterson's levels. I don't know how often he gets his blood work done. And maybe in the beginning, Jordan was good, but then as time has gone on, I don't think he's good. And now, so this begs the question, some people might be asking, like, well, what about Michaela? Because if you look at Michaela, she looks great. Like, not only like, oh, in shape great, because she's always been in shape, but she looks radiant. She looks very good. And some people speculate, and myself, that like, oh, is she really on the lion diet, you know? Like, I don't have any reason to think she's lying other than just looking at her, right? Like, I actually even talked to her like a year or so ago. I dropped her a DM just asking her if she was still on it. At the time, she said she was on it. She's been on it for 3.5 years. And my mind just was like, that just doesn't make any damn sense to me. You're telling me that you're only eating meats and salt? Like certain meats. She said like different meats, but like just meats and salt, and then you're good? Like, it's hard to believe. It's in the same line as, I'm sure a lot of you people watching this are somewhat aware of the fitness and the fitness industry, particularly on YouTube. There's a thing called natties and fake natties. So, right, the natural people who don't take any steroids are natties. They're natural. And then you have the unnatural people who are just obviously on steroids, but they're not lying. They're just very transparent about it. We respect those people. And then you have the fake natties. You have the people who are obviously on steroids, and they say they're natural. You know, I just had to do my chicken and broccoli, bro. My chicken and broccoli, it's hard work in the gym. And it's like, yeah, we know you're eating chicken and broccoli and having hard work in the gym. You're missing the third ingredient, which is the performance-enhancing drugs. Like, there's certain people, when you look at them, you know you cannot achieve that level, that you cannot get that big without performance-enhancing drugs, without some type of steroid. Which ones are you taking? What is it? What's your compound? We would like to know. And it also, it's because the reason why you want the transparency is so people can know what they need to do if they want to get there. And they can also know that just hard work and diet is not going to get them there, so they're not going to waste their time. They're not going to get depressed, being like, no matter how hard I work, I can't get to that level. When you look at Michaela, are you convinced that she's only eating meat and salt? Now, maybe things have changed within the last year, because it was just only a year ago. But even a year ago, she looked fantastic. Like I said, when you look at her, I'm like, this does not look like somebody who's lacking any type of vitamins, any type of anything. But if you are literally only eating meat and salt, you will be lacking stuff. You absolutely will. I mean, you can see some testimonies of people going on the lion diet, for example, people that were literally only eating meat. Just go look it up, because I feel like a lot of people who are in support of this stuff, they don't look at the negative stuff. There's plenty of them. And the negative stuff would tell people like, oh yeah, I felt like trash, this, and that. I mean, Joe Rogan talked about like having just tar diarrhea doing the meat diet. And I'm like, yeah, that's not healthy, bro. That's not, like, even when I'm only eating one thing, I don't have that. I've never just shit black tar. So I just found that like kind of strange. And then people still are like, I'm going to try that too because Joe Rogan lost 12 pounds. I'm like, yeah, because he shit his guts out, bro. If you have diarrhea, you lose weight. I don't know what to tell you. So, I mean, it's you're obviously going to naturally lose because you're eating less. Because nobody just shoves just so much protein. It's hard to eat a lot of protein, right? You can eat a lot of carbs. It's very easy. Anyway, I'm just not convinced. It would be... the problem is you just can't. How could you really know other than just using an educated guess? All you can do is educated guess. And I feel like Jordan Peterson, from the looks of him, looking at his skin, looking at just his demeanor, how he's always crying, all of these things seem like telltale signs of somebody whose hormones are out of whack. Maybe his testosterone has plummeted like mine did. And when it comes to it, I would suggest looking into getting on TRT. I just wanted to make this video in a non-disrespectful way, even though I've made plenty of fun of Jordan Peterson over the years, because I mean, come on, he's fun to make fun of. But this is something that I've just thought about for some time, that I'm like, bro, there's way too many clips. There's way too many. There's not just 3 or 4. There's not just 5. There's way too many. So I'm like, bro, if Jordan Peterson happens to come across this, or anyone that knows him personally, maybe Joe Rogan or somebody, I would talk to him, because obviously whatever's going on with him is not normal. So I don't know, guys, what do you think about this? Do you think maybe his hormones are imbalanced? Do you think maybe he's still on this diet that is just not helping him out? Maybe he's having some relief from certain autoimmune disorders, but at the same time, his hormones are suffering. Let me know what you guys think. I'm very curious to see what you got to say. You know, the last thing I just do want to say is that you have to agree, at least I hope you agree, if you're a reasonable person, that the amount he is crying isn't normal, and he's not just an emotional guy. Because like I said in the very beginning of the video, from when we'd known him up until very recently, he was not doing this. So him being an emotional guy is just out of the question. All of the hundreds of hours of his lectures, all of the interviews, and just the diatribes and all of that stuff that has existed for years, he is not bawling his eyes out. So get that thought out of your head and give me plausible reasons why this may be happening. You know, let's discuss this. Should be fun. Anyway, have a good one, guys. I'll see you in the next video.
I always feel that it's a privilege to spend time with my children. And I have some sense of how fast time goes.
It's been, you have no idea how it touches so many, us and me especially, and reminding me of like how good still humans are, and really helping me not to lose my hope. So thank you for everything you do.
Yeah, you too, kiddo. Your book's deadly, and so are you. Keep it up. Keep it up.